Hi. So this week is one of our working weeks and it's all about the projects. So the team project and the solo project. And you're going to be working on finding resources for your project and also diving into starting to figure out how to do peer reviews. And so I have multiple videos that will help throughout this process. This first video is how do we find good sources? So this is something that's always a struggle. It takes so long to develop the skill. It wasn't until graduate school where I got really, really good at the synonyms to put into the algorithm to figure out what exactly would work. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks. I'm essentially just going to go through how I would look up a project. I'm going to look up, I think, developmental psychology for a solo project, just because that's my area and it's not one that people choose a lot, but we'll kind of figure it out from there. So the very first thing we're going to do is we are not going to use Google in its normal form. I know I'm usually such a fan of Google. Use it in a bunch of different contexts. Start there, totally fine. But most of the things that you're going to find in a Google search are web pages. So let me start. Let's put in history of developmental psychology. And first and foremost, we're going to see iResearch.net, simplypsychology.org, Lumen Learning right here. Now, these are really great resources. They're going to have a ton of information. iResearch.net is usually really, really long, full of a bunch of stuff. So a really good place to start. None of these three are ones that are acceptable to cite in your paper. And the reason for this is they are not peer reviewed. They are a website you can see full of ads, meaning that they're probably a little bit biased, not the best source. In the next video, I talk about how to evaluate a source, and we can see kind of here some of those things, with ads, with what is their main goal. Well, their main goal is to drive traffic to their site. So it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be accurate, and they're not peer reviewed. So we don't know whether or not they're accurate or not. We're just kind of taking a guess. So a good place to get started, we can see like, oh, here's a name. And then I can take that information and search it in a more applicable context, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And so that's why we're not really going to use Google. All of these, again, are just sites. Lumen Learning is probably the best that we have because it is educational, and that one is a little bit more reviewed because it comes from a publishing website. Again, Wikipedia. I love Wikipedia. I think it's a really great place to start. Wikipedia even offers down at the bottom, they typically cite their sources. Wow, this is really long. So you can see external links, further reading. These are great places to then jump off from. You can see all of the citations here as well. These are going to be a little bit more peer-reviewed books, journal articles, things that we're actually looking for. So again, Wikipedia, great place to start and start jumping off. But Google's not exactly where we want to look for most of our sources for projects. So where do we look? So we're going to start with the library. The library is going to have the best. I have it on a bookmark. I suggest you bookmark it. If not, it's library.unr.edu, or you can Google UNR Library and we can get there. And now we are at the library website, and there's going to be several different places we can start our search. One is just searching the library collection right here. I can put in history of developmental psychology, and I'm going to get a ton of different resources. I can get journal articles here. I can get books. I can get all the things that are kind of peer reviewed that we are looking for. And then I can narrow it down. So if I only want articles, if I only want book chapters, I might not want dissertations just because those are people that are working on projects, but maybe I do want a dissertation, especially if I'm looking at, trying to find the dissertation of some famous person from a long time ago. It'll show me different categorizations. So I can look in science and technology. I can look specifically in psychology. I can narrow down by a lot of things, especially available online, etc. So this is a good place to start. Not my favorite. I'll show you some of my favorites. So if I go back to the library's website, I go to databases. And when you go to databases, you'll have every database that the library pays for. Now, the library spends a ton of money to get you access to all of these databases that are like Google, but a little bit better and more applicable to appropriate sources for your classes. And they're free to you because the library pays for it. I guess you're paying for it in tuition a little bit, but it's not where most of your tuition money goes. Anyways, another time. So what we can look for, the biggest ones in psychology are going to be PsycInfo. If I go to P, I can get down to PsycInfo, PsycTests, tons of different ones. PsycInfo is one of the biggest ones. It's going to look like this. And now I can put in history and developmental psychology. And then this one uses this idea of Boolean operators. I've put in links to different ideas of Boolean operators. These are things like and or not, so that you can be really a lot more picky in what you are putting in there. So if I want like history of developmental psychology, but not education, I could put that in there, and I could do and here and then not education. And this would make sure that the results are taking into account everything that's developmental psychology, but nothing that includes education in there, which would be a little bit more limiting because developmental also included a lot of education research. But just to show you how those kind of Boolean, you can see the word here in case you want to Google it, Boolean logic type of things. So how to get the best search is really about what you input into here. The tech industry has something called garbage in, garbage out. If I'm only typing history of developmental psychology, I'm only going to get a certain subset of responses. So I might start there, but then as I do my search, maybe I'll start expanding and doing like developmental psychology without the history, or educational psychology, or children and psychology, or adults or geriatrics in psychology, something to kind of a lot of synonyms, a lot of different ways of saying the same thing to try to get the algorithm to spit back what it wants, right? So if we think about like one person in the library, she used to do this demonstration where she would put up a soda can and she would ask people, what is this called? And some people would say soda, some people would say pop, some people would say Coke. And we have a lot of different ways to say the same exact thing. And that's what we're trying to do when we're looking at this. We're trying to figure out what are all the different ways I could say the same thing to get the history of developmental psychology, but get some slightly different results, because the algorithm is an algorithm and it's formulated to get specific results. And so sometimes you got to kind of maneuver it around to get different results. So this is PsycInfo. So if I do the search, what I'll get is a bunch of journal articles, books, things like that. They're all available online. You can do PDF full text right here and have access to it, and look around, and you can kind of peruse the abstract and see if it's something that is worth it for you. Now, aside from PsycInfo, the other one that I like to use, because I did mention that I love Google. Let me get back to where I need to be. So I could hit G right here, just like I did, but I can also just search for it. So I'm going to type in Google, and I'm going to get Google Scholar. So I love Google. It works really, really well, but we're going to do Google Scholar instead of regular Google. And what this is going to do is Google Scholar will comb through journal articles, books, those types of resources that, again, are most likely to be approved by me or other professors for projects that you're doing. The one issue with Google Scholar is they do not update as frequently as some of the other databases. So if you're looking for a brand new article, Google Scholar might not have it. I think they only update like once a month, or maybe even like further than that. So if you're looking for something brand new, maybe avoid it. But this is a history course. It's probably going to have what you want. So I'm going to put in history of developmental psychology again. And now you can see the difference in what that original Google search provided and what this one does. And now I can see all of these are journal articles. And since I'm logged into the library, so that's a really important point, is to try to stay logged into the library. Google Scholar will take me directly to where this is at UNR. And now I can figure it out in whatever database that UNR had it. And I can find it where I need to. I can sign back in. And I can get that article directly to me, or if it's a PDF, I can just click on the PDF over here, and I can get straight to the PDF. And then that way I have the document with me. So those are the biggest ways I like to. So PsycInfo, Google Scholar are some of the best. There's a few more that are really related to history. I recommend going to the library. We have a librarian specifically dedicated to this class, as well as to you as a major, who will show you the best ways to look up. They will walk through whether or not the source is a good source or bad source with you. They will show you, okay, if you're having trouble, they'll help you figure out what are those synonyms, what are the different ways that you can really address the same problem to get different results. So I highly recommend you use that resource. It's really easy. Let me actually show you. Go back to the library. How to find them. So go to Find a Librarian up here in the menu, and you'll see that they have listed their different majors. So because you're part of this class, even if you're not a psychology major, you're welcome to use ours for this course. If you want to use your own librarian for your own major, that is also applicable. So Teresa is our major for psychology, or our librarian for psychology. And you can just click on her name and schedule an online consultation or schedule an in-person consultation, and it'll take you directly to a place where you can schedule, and you can see she's available in just a few days from now. And you can just schedule right online and meet with her, and she will talk to you all about the things you need to know, questions that you're having, all of that. So I highly recommend you use that resource. It's free to you, and they're there to help you out. So the last thing I was going to say is about interlibrary loans and what happens if the search result doesn't have your paper. So when we're looking at the results here, we can see it's available in the Knowledge Center. It's available online. We can download the PDF. We can see all of these things. But what happens if it's not available online? There's something called an interlibrary loan, and that allows us to get the source from somebody else. So if it's a book, in the old days, they used to just mail us the book, and we borrowed it and then mailed it right back. Now, most things are available online, so you can actually get an interlibrary loan within minutes sometimes. I usually get them within an hour or 2 hours of requesting it. So you'll get the article pretty quickly. In here, there will be somewhere that shows you. So all of these articles I pulled up are already available online, so I can't show you, but somewhere on here, it'll say request an interlibrary loan. You'll sign into your library account and you'll submit and just write the name of the article, the journal, etc. That's all available right here. Submit an interlibrary loan and they'll email it to you right away. So the biggest takeaway from this part of the conversation: never, ever, ever, ever pay for an article. You might be directed towards somewhere that says, hey, log in. This happens a lot more on Google Scholar than it does on PsycInfo or the library website. But if you're using Google Scholar and it says, hey, you have to log in or you have to pay $80 for access to this journal, do not do it. The library pays a significant fee. They'll have it. And if they don't, we can get it from somebody else. And if you have any trouble with this part of the process, you can't find an article, you can't get it to download, and you can't figure out how to use interlibrary loan, email me, email the TA, email Teresa, our librarian. We will figure it out for you. So never, ever, ever pay for an article. We'll help you get it. Those are the biggest takeaways. So that's how to search for sources. Again, if you need more help, please reach out. We're here to help you.